What's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video, and today we're talking more about Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and the most important aspects that I've seen so far in the trailer. Now guys, my initial analysis or trailer breakdown will still be coming, but I think I want to do it in a way to where I go over things in bits and pieces as we go along. Now I'm still analyzing through all of the footage and comparing it to previous games to kind of see exactly what is happening. But four of the major things, or maybe a little bit more than that I want to talk about today are some of the major aspects that kind of caught my eye right away and could be a major factor, probably one of the biggest gameplay changes ever in the Xenoblade Chronicles franchise history or universe. And Nintendo has a very good, I would say, development team or franchise to kind of learn off from. Now, first and foremost, we're gonna go ahead and start out right with that, and that is the flute playing in the game. Now, for those that are unfamiliar with the Xenoblade franchise, there is not any type of Legend of Zelda flute playing or mechanics that they use from a gameplay perspective that involves music. They have great music in the game. The music's always awesome. The composers are great. Yasunori Mitsuda, but they don't really involve those gameplay elements like you have seen in The Legend of Zelda or even in other games. But this game has heavily talked about it. But in Xenoblade Chronicles 3, the first thing that you see is the main character playing the flute. And then you see it again, and there's other things that are referenced throughout that with the flute playing. And also, Takahashi-san, the big boss over at Monolith Soft himself, says that that plays a big part into it. Now, where did they get that from? What is going on with that? Well, I would guess, this is kind of going a little bit deeper, that yes, there's going to be gameplay and story based around it, but I think that after a decade plus of working with Nintendo on the Legend of Zelda games, I think that Monolith Soft finally figured out a way to incorporate some of that Zelda gameplay DNA, or at least concept to gameplay DNA, that they've done in the Legend of Zelda games. Zelda games are always focused around some type of musical instrument or something that kind of plays a part into the story and into even gameplay aspects with it, with the Legend of Zelda Wind Waker and also Ocarina of Time, Skyward Sword. I mean, there's so many different ones that have these musical instruments or people or something that helps facilitate that gameplay movement or certain aspects or cutscenes that trigger after you do that music. So I think that finally, now at this point, after a decade plus of making Xenoblade games, Monolith Soft has kind of imprinted some of that DNA into their game with Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And honestly, this could be one of the biggest changes, if not the biggest change, depending on how Monolith Soft goes about it here with Xenoblade Chronicles. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing what they do here. Now, another major thing that I've noticed here, outside of some of the other stuff that I know a lot of you guys are going to discuss, like the characters and like who's coming back and all that, trust me, we're going to get to all that. Right now, we're just talking about like the major things that I've spotted out that could directly tie into the gameplay of the game. If you've noticed, look at like that paper mechanic that they had in the game. You saw familiar weapons come back, but there's definitely other powers and other type of things in this game that has not been done before. And that, once again, could be a very interesting and unique element added in. And in particular, of course, the guy like with a little bit of the fro and the glasses, and he kind of shoots out like those paper type of bombs things, or they can move and all that. That type of stuff really gets me excited, because if you know Monolith Soft, they never show their full hand right away. They always wait a little bit, and a little bits and pieces, you get kind of a little bit of a new power or a new thing or a new spell or something else that they go along with. Now with Xenoblade Chronicles 2, it was nuts because it was like drip fed different types of blades, and then like the rare blades and all the different type of stuff like that. So I don't think it's going to be drip fed like that, and thank God it's not going to be anything like that. This game doesn't seem that way, but for this one in general, it does seem like there are going to be some major new powers never seen in any of the Xenoblade universe that you'll be able to fight against, then also employ on your own team. So I'm very interested to see how these mechanics tie together. And as we go through, we're going to be able to put together what this game can do, what you can do in it, and how the gameplay will work. So right now, so far, what we have is, of course, the flute playing mechanic, which is going to play a part into the cutscenes and into what's happening with the game and potentially even gameplay. gameplay. Then we also have new powers as well, which we don't know the name of those at this point, but there's also at least one new power that we did see, along with other weapons that we've seen before in the series. Now, the next thing that I wanted to talk about that I think is actually going to be one of the biggest things here is the party system. The party system is changed up. Now, and if you noticed, there are 4 people in your party this time. Now, if you've played previous games before, 4 is usually, okay, yeah, 4. Xenoblade Chronicles X, but no, not exactly, because Xenoblade Chronicles 2, that game was 3, but each character had a blade, so therefore it doubled it up to 6. So you had to cut one character out from Xenoblade Chronicles X in terms of your party members, because that would have been too much stress on the battle system. At least that's what Takahashi-san had to say. So it looks like they're going back to the 4 team member system, and as you can clearly see when they start running about and everything, so 4 team members. So that probably tells me that there isn't going to be any type of blade system in the game like it worked in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torn of the Golden Country, just because of that. Because I don't think they're going to be able to have everybody have a blade, then there's 8 people on screen, or maybe even some people have blades, some people don't. I mean, it's possible that you can work in conjunction. Maybe it's like a switch feature, which is something that could happen, but I don't think that they're going to do that in the same type of way, which we'll get to probably in a bigger video. And I kind of talked about it before, that I feel that there's going to be a different hook or gimmick for the main combat in this game. I don't feel that it's going to be exactly like Xenoblade Chronicles X or Xenoblade Chronicles 2 or Definitive Edition or Torna. I think that they're going to do something different for this one, but I did notice the party size, the team members. I think that's going to be such a key for this game. How many team members do you have? What can those team members do? How is everything structured around their gameplay and their combat? They didn't show anything for a reason on that, because I feel that there's going to be a big reveal that once again pushes this game to do something a bit different and also appeal to more people than what we've seen before in the past. Now, another thing that I really wanted to talk about that I feel is very important in this game, and you see it right there in the trailer, is the environments and also what you can do in those environments. So something that's back that we kind of missed in previous Xenoblade games is the traversal types, right? We did not have in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 any type of real cool way to traverse the land outside of riding on Nia's Dromar. You know what I'm saying? On the blade that she did have, which was fun, don't get me wrong. But in this game, not only can you swim kind of really fast and cool and everything, but in this game, you can also ride on like a boat. They had a boat on there, and that was just one way of traversal. So something tells me that there might even be more. There might be other types of machines that you can ride. There's the boat in there. You might get an airship. Heck, there might even be a mech that you can get into and go across. So with all of these different elements that they're doing right here, I think that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is stacking up to be one of the best, if not the best Xenoblade game. And I think I was super hyped the other day when I made my video and I said that it's already the best Xenoblade game, which we still need to play it. But like I said, I have the intrinsic eye for Xenoblade, and just from looking at that trailer, like I stated before in my previous video, if you haven't seen it, make sure you check it out, my video that I did yesterday on this channel, and where I talked about Xenoblade Chronicles 3 looks incredible. I talked about how they're taking all of the lessons that they've learned from Xenoblade Chronicles, the original, from the Definitive Edition, from X, from Torna, from all of them, from 2, and they're kind of mixing them all together and putting it into this. And it looks like they've been giving this game their all. Now, there is one more thing. So I said 4 things, but I said maybe 4. There might be one more thing. But another huge aspect with this, guys, and you cannot understate this when it comes to overall, is the character design. Believe it or not, the character designers are the same as it was with Xenoblade Chronicles 2. But what they've done is that they've listened to the feedback of the fans out there. And Monolith Soft is actually very receptive to feedback, although they don't have any English accounts when it comes down to it. Their Japanese account, they know. They see what people are saying. They saw the criticisms with Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and the character designs with Pyra and with Mithra. I know some people get kind of weirded out with those type of designs. I had no problem with it because if you play the game, it ends up just being nothing at the end of the day. But I think this time, the character designs are a lot more, I would say, tame, grounded, and fit within the world that they're trying to play. This looks like people that would be playing flutes, well, they dress just like that. So I think that those aspects It's a major thing in there because I think how they look and how they interact with the world is a very important thing for the vibe of the game and the overall tone of it. So if you capture everything that I talked about here, the main mechanic here, to where it looks like they're kind of taking from The Legend of Zelda, which is always a good thing to do because Xenoblade does a lot of things better than The Legend of Zelda when it comes to the open-ended areas and stuff like that. Now, Breath of the Wild caught up in a hurry when it comes down to it, caught up so much to the point to where Monolith Soft was like, man, you guys need us to really get this done even more. And obviously Monolith Soft helped out with that. But I think that Xenoblade Chronicles X, it's obviously not a resource gathering type of game like that. But when it comes to the open world and how it looks and the topography and all that type of stuff, Xenoblade Chronicles is like second to none on the Nintendo Switch. It's very solid. Over the course of a decade that they've been releasing these type of games on Nintendo hardware, they've always done an incredible job, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 looks to be that way as well. So these 5 aspects that I've talked about can all tie together, and even with more to create, once again, the ultimate and best Xenoblade Chronicles game that they can make at this point. This really does seem like it is going to be a love letter to fans out there. Now, this is probably a video for like another day, but something that I also want to talk about as well. Some people have asked me, is this the last Xenoblade game? Will there be any more Xenoblades after this? I do think that this is the end of an era after this game because they're connecting 1 and they're connecting 2. You have the future connected and they're putting that with this game with Xenoblade Chronicles 3. So I feel that they will move on to their new IP, or they will move on to Xeno something else. Like, remember, it was Xenogears, then we had Xeno Saga games, now we have Xenoblade. I do think that this will be the last Blade game maybe, and they'll move on to Xeno something else, which could be that new IP that people have talked about, which would be the Xeno something else. Now, you never know, right? I could be wrong on that. There could be another Xenoblade game, but after multiple expansions, they've had 2 expansions at this point. They've had multiple mainline games. I think maybe it's time to move on in the Xeno universe, and they kind of go with a different tone and different style for the next game that they're working on. But I'm excited to see what that is and what they can do with everything, because if you combine a lot of the elements that I'm analyzing here, man, and like I said, this is going to be multiple videos on this one, but if you combine everything that we've seen so far just in that snippet, that 2 minutes or whatever it was of that trailer, there's so many things to talk about. There's so many different things that was hidden in there. Like Takahashi-san did say, he did state that hey, there's a lot of hidden stuff in there. There's so many things to look at here to where you can just say, wow, this was made with a certain type of quality. This was made with a certain type of level that it's just hard to do. You just don't see it on the Nintendo Switch. There's no Japanese RPGs that are like Xenoblade. So I'm very excited to talk about that and kind of reveal more as I go along. And of course, as we get new content, new footage, new information on the game. Now, one last thing that I want to talk about, which once again, I sound like it's deja vu, but could be its own video, is people talking about Xenoblade and its sales and the status of the game within Nintendo, and if it's worth the one last thing or the main game type of thing here. So here's what I'll say with this. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is coming out this September. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition and Xenoblade Chronicles the original, both of those games are extremely highly rated. I think the Definitive Edition is a little bit lower on Metacritic, but the original game is a 90+ rated type of game. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was lower rated just because it had the whole issue with the battle system with the blades, which was confusing for a lot of game journalists out there. It confused them and they had problems playing it. The game is still really good, but it did confuse them, and of course some got kind of whatevered with the designs of the characters. But the game is still extremely high quality when it comes to the gameplay, the mechanics, the system, and even the environments and everything. There's still not a lot of games that look as good as Xenoblade Chronicles 2 on the Nintendo Switch. Now, if you look at what else they've done, Xenoblade Chronicles X was also another highly rated game, and it got docked a bit just because the story was not quite there, right? The story was not quite there. The gameplay was impressive, the world was really impressive, the tech was good, even using it on the Wii U was very impressive. But the point that I'm trying to make is that all of these games are high quality, 80+ rated games, 80 all the way up to 90 rated games. All of these games are extremely good, and Nintendo is trying to build something here, okay? I'd rather have Nintendo say, hey, we're gonna have confidence in you. We're gonna have confidence that you are that big game. We're gonna try to help you out. We're gonna try to make sure that we put you guys in the best position to succeed than them be like Sony and say, okay, 1 game, 2 game, they don't sell millions of copies like The Last of Us, all right, they're out. Like Japan Studio. They have Gravity Rush, which is really good. It's a really good franchise. It can sell really well if it got the push and got the tender love and care. Yes, people didn't buy it as much, but that's because Sony does not push it because it does not sell as much. So I never want to see Nintendo get to that point to where it's only about Mario, Zelda, Smash Brothers, and that's it. And anything that sells 10 million plus. So anything, if it's 10 million plus, that's all we're going to push as the last game or the big game or something like that. I think that it's time as fans that we start embracing other stuff outside of that, which a lot of people already do. But I don't think we need to have Mario and Zelda shoved down our throat 24/7 in Nintendo Directs. It's good to end on a Xenoblade. And honestly, this is the second time that they've ended on Xenoblade. Okay, they did it back in 2019. It was the Fall Direct 2019. They announced Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. So they gave it some love there. Now they gave it another bit of love as well in this Direct. So I'm so happy that Nintendo is willing to say, wait a minute, let's look at this game. We have this as well. They ended on Bayonetta for the last Direct back in September. They ended on Bayonetta, and none of these games are 10 million sellers plus or anything like Mario and Zelda, but that's not the point. The quality is there. The game quality is really good, and it's earned, and it deserves a right to be there as that one more big game. And fans should give it a shot. If you haven't played Xenoblade, stop listening to what everybody else has to say or what Digital Foundry has to say with resolutions or whatever, and try out the game yourself and see what you think, because the game is a high quality game. Not everybody's going to love everything at Directs or love everything with Xenoblade, but at the same time, you won't know if you like something if you don't try it for the most part, and if you don't see what it does have to offer. But I do feel out of all the years covering Monolith Soft and covering Xenoblade, this game will probably have the best widespread appeal and the best opportunity to sell really well. I think it's going to do better than Xenoblade Chronicles 1, better than Xenoblade Chronicles 2, better than Torna, better than X. I think it's going to do better than all of them by a large margin. This is the best environment to really show off Xenoblade and give it that opportunity to be that major franchise for Nintendo like Fire Emblem got and like other franchises have got in the past from Nintendo. So I think it's time that we kind of give that its shot, its chance as well, because this game is going to stack up a bit different. Based off of what I'm analyzing here, it's not going to be the exact same as the other ones. It's going to give you that Xeno flair, that Xeno love, that depth that you love and know. But I think also for new people, you're going to be able to hop in and have a lot of fun as well. So I think it's worthy of that last spot. It's not about the sales, in my opinion, at least when it comes to this, because we can't have new Mario and Zelda every single Nintendo Direct. We've got to have other games as well to fill in the first half or fill into other times as well. So I don't understand why it's just Mario, Zelda, Mario, Zelda, Mario, Zelda. No, we can have Xenoblade, we can have Bayonetta, we can have Fire Emblem, we can have other games that are really high quality and good, fill those gaps as well. And there's nothing wrong with that. So Nintendo, keep on doing that, please. Xenoblade deserves that love, and they are going to be rewarded handsomely as Xenoblade this September is going to kill it in sales. So what are your thoughts on everything that I had to say here? I know it was a bit of a lot. Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and we will see you for the next video. Peace.